Cryogenic Engineering Industries. My name is Chris, this is Peter, and this is Justin, and we're doing an expandable spine cage. So 31 million people are suffering in America today from some type of back problem. Most of the issues can be fixed using medication or physical therapy. For more severe cases, surgery must be done. The severe cases in particular that I'm talking about today are degenerative disc disease, spine fractures, and cancer. When they go to remove a tumor, the vertebrae needs to be restored. So what the solution is spinal fusion. There are two types of spinal fusion. First, let me talk about what it is. I'm sorry. It's a technique used to fuse two or more vertebrae together. There's two ways of doing it. One is taking bone graft from another part of the body to fuse it together to the affected area of the spinal cage, of the spine, or you can use a cage, using pedicle skews and removing the vertebrae and inserting the cage as a replacement. These are two types of spinal cages. We have non-expandable and expandable. As you can probably tell by looking at it, expandable obviously adds more range of movement, adjustability to a patient's needs. The problem with non-expandable is that multiple need to be made and tested inside to make sure that it has a perfect fit and that it will heal properly. Common materials that are approved by the FDA and that are being used right now are materials such as PEEK, titanium alloy, and carbon fiber. These have been proven not to cause allergies when performing these types of surgeries. So what we're proposing to do is design our own spinal cage and to contribute to the current spinal fusion techniques. Our motivation is to help people and to use our knowledge, what we've learned in mechanical engineering, and apply it to a medical field. So our main objective is design one cage that fits multiple sections of the spinal body. The section that we're mostly focusing on would be the thoracic curve and the lumbar region as well. Once you get into the cervical, it gets a little small to have a universal cage. We will be making our own tools as well to install the device, so we will be making the mechanical tools as well. And it's going to reduce costs because the way that it is right now is that hospitals buy these in packs and they try them out, different patients, and they have to find the correct one to fit that specific patient.
Expandable spinal cages are some of the best technology right now in regards to fixing people's vertebral issues. Some of the leading markets that we have right now are based at these three companies. They are the industry leaders in expandable spinal cages. These companies are Globus Medical. They are a Pennsylvania-based spine company. Also, Deploy Spine, and also Ulrich Medical, which is a German company, all specializing in expandable spinal cages. The global perspective, with research, we have been able to see, engineers have been able to design the most efficient design in regards to expandable spinal cages. With research and design, now they can develop an expandable spinal cage that has the most amount of volume inside of it to promote the most amount of bony ingrowth. Bony ingrowth allows for the fusion to take place a lot faster, and that has been all throughout research. As with any development, there are different ways to go about designing an expandable spinal cage. You can use a predicate device, or you can use a 100% original concept. A 100% original concept, it will take a little longer for the FDA's approval, but it will have a lot less legality issues as far as patent litigations, because you're using a 100% original concept as opposed to a predicate device, which will pass FDA approval a little faster, but you will have a lot of issues with patent legality because you're simulating something that's already out in the market. Our conceptual design will take advantage of a lot of the pros in an expandable spinal cage. It uses an open architecture to allow the most amount of bone graft to be placed inside of it, and it promotes the most amount of bony ingrowth. The end plates also have spikes on them to promote the maximum amount of stabilization when being placed inside the vertebrae.
Some of the benefits that will be associated with our spinal cage are that ultimately we'll lower the material needed for the medical procedure. This will also lower the cost placed on the patient in the long run. Also, that this will lessen the time that the doctor has the patient open. So depending on ultimately the design we go with will depend on what procedure is used to place it inside the body, which will most likely shorten recovery time. And also, we hope to increase reliability and basically one size fits all, as stated before. So global awareness, since we are reducing materials and the cost, hopefully we will increase the market to which we can reach globally. And ethics, no engineer will be working outside of his area of expertise, and all documentation will be in different languages to include units, SI, metric. And by the end of our prototyping and testing, we hope to spend no more than $1,500. And timeline, spend most of our time conceptual development and complete in December. Any questions?
To what extent have you included the biomedical community in this whole development and process? Because it seems to me that there are a lot of biomedical issues, not just mechanical engineering, material issues.
Yes, we've taken it upon ourselves to implement ourselves in the biomedical department, so we've been asking a lot of questions, and also with outside help from different companies. So, you know, we go to them because they have the experience. And
so you do have external resources to your team?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. The company that we're working with actually has experience making these similar type of products, and like Justin had just said earlier, or just said right now, we've also been asking a lot of questions in the biomedical department, getting to know a lot of the professors that are in there, and asking them the proper questions as far as what are the best type of materials that are used for inside of the body, and what are some patent issues and legalities when it comes to FDA regulations also.
My question is probably like a follow-up to this. You stated that a couple of the benefits for your design is that it's going to lower the time in surgery and it's going to shorten the recovery time. How do you know this?
well, we say the time in surgery because for a box of stackable plates, they have to put it in, see if it fits, take it out, put it in, see if it fits, take it out. With the expandable cage, I can place it in, adjust it to the required length, and then set it in place, and then start the closing up procedure. So that's how we say it's going to reduce the time in surgery, and also the materials, because the doctors have to pay for that whole box.
And the recovery time?
Recovery time, depending on our final design, will determine if it's going to be A-lift or anterior lumbar fusion, or P-lift, which comes from the back. So we're aiming towards A-lift, which is from the front, and this is the most, this has been proven to have the least recovery time, and that's what we're shooting for.
And the longest surgical procedure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because you got to have a separate doctor to set up for an A-lift.
Yes.
Very skilled, very skilled surgeon.
Okay. Questions I have for you. How does the expandability work exactly?
Well, the expandability is going to be a mechanism. As you've seen from our prototype, we had a top plate and we had a bottom plate. But the locking mechanism has yet to be designed. Every company uses a different type of locking mechanism.
And that's probably the most important part of the whole picture. Do you know what the loads applied here are? Have you got any work done on kind of compression that this is going to need? What kind of preloading are you going to have to put on this cage to be functional right off the bat? What kind of tools are you going to need to use to install this device? Have you thought out all of those kind of things?
We're still in concept design, so we're trying to map out what we want to do, you know, in the long run. So, and we haven't done any really final
As far as our development or our design, ideally we have a conceptual design which has the proper locking mechanisms, which has the proper design that we want to shoot for that gives us the optimal amount of volume. After that is said, then we'll go ahead and start checking for the loads and the stresses that we're going to need to place on this.
Okay, another one I would like to make sure you're careful with is that when it's used, that you can't possibly, like a patient runs with the device and they disengage your locking mechanism. That would be a bad thing. All of a sudden, he's got compression on his.
I'm not sure if it said it, maybe we didn't go over it as well in the presentation as we would like, but the cage itself is just the beginning of the spinal fusion process. Once you place the cage inside of there, you don't want to be jumping around doing too many things until the bone has actually connected to itself. The idea behind a spinal fusion surgery or a spinal cage in particular is you place something in there, you place a good amount of bone grafts inside of the spinal cage itself to allow the top vertebrae that's on below it and the bottom vertebrae that's below it to fuse together eventually. When it gets to that point where you have a longer vertebrae and one strong vertebrae, the person can be more active again. But while it's just an exposed spinal cage, a patient would most likely be recommended that he stays a little less mobile than he once was.
Just as a color comment, why don't you tell them which company you're involved with?
I work with Diffuse Spine. Do you need any connections there? Call me. You want it reviewed or you want some information, don't hesitate to call.
Absolutely.
I went out to tag my car, so I missed the very beginning of your presentation, but once the bone is fused, does your device stay in the back?
It's permanent.
It's permanent?
Yeah,
Okay.
it permanently stays, it replaces the vertebrae, so
Mhm.
it's there for.
So like the bone kind of grows around it and stays?
Yeah,
inside?
you insert bone graft inside of it, and then it grows, infuses to the rest of the vertebral bodies surrounding.
Sorry, but
And what material are you looking at?
We're still thinking about what material we're going to use. Once we get into the prototyping phase and testing out what the strength of it is, we're going to think about whether we use titanium PEEK, and carbon fiber is up and coming now for these type of devices, so we're going to look into that as well.
As a follow-up to that, you want to make sure that whatever material you use, the body is going to immediately reject it.
Yeah. Some of the two main materials, like Chris was saying, are titanium and PEEK. These two materials have been being used inside the body now. Titanium is being used inside the body for a good amount of time. So ideally, we have our expandable spinal cage made on one of these two materials because they've been known to not be rejected inside the body.
Now, your bone graft will not be integral, or I should say, this will contain the bone graft per se?
Absolutely.
Because it will not grow, it will not attach to either of those materials,
No.
your bone graft.
The bone graft goes inside of the spinal cage, and then it fuses with the bone graft that's with your vertebrae.
Is there going to be an access way for it to get through your top and your bottom plate?
Yes, the holes on the side, along with on the extending rod as well.
Are those large enough?
Oh,
There's no holes in the top plate, that's why I'm asking the question.
Do you have
In our
a
contract?
figure? Show something on the screen.
Okay, that's different than what you've got in your report.
Yeah, we're constantly making changes to it. We're still in conceptual design. We're throwing out a lot of ideas at the moment, and we want to improve the design before we finalize it.
I have a question. What will be the life of this product? As in, how many years?
It's supposed to be permanent.
But I think, as far as I know, the surgical products, whatever you use, have a particular shelf life. And after the shelf life, they either need to be replaced or changed or whatever. But just in case, if you put this, and if it has a shelf life of say 10 years, and you say the bone grows on it, so after 10 years, you'll have to actually cut the bone and then remove it?
This is a relatively new technology, and that's something we're gonna need to look into,
Or
because I don't
maybe
think
you
they've ran
should try
across
for
that.
something that can dissolve in time so that when the new bone grows around it, the bone stays, but the material itself actually mixes with the body. So that'd be
We have an
very-
expert here, let's hear his opinion.
Yeah, the first thing, they would never remove a permanent implant like this. It's there for your lifetime.
So does it not have any harmful effect or something like that?
It depends on the biocompatibility of the material. And it's a function of how long it takes for dissolution rate of the material. Second thing is, the problem with the bioresorbables is that they structurally change over time. So now all of a sudden, you're going to have, it's a much harder model to be able to figure out when the internal material, the bone ingrowth, crosses over where the structural stability of the structure, because it's going to be dissolving over time. That problem is a huge problem. There's nobody doing that problem at this time. I wouldn't suggest you try.
What's the cost of your spinal cage compared to what's out there? I mean, do you have any idea? Is it going to?
Well, currently we don't want to take the spinal cage to complete production.
Right.
We want to stop at the prototyping stage because that's going to be more cost effective for us. Because prices range, but we've seen some pretty high prices just to fabricate one in titanium per se.
You think those will be cheaper? Or?
Ideally, we want to try to make it so that we use.
I don't think anybody knows the actual cost. So,
Yeah, we've
even,
been trying to
even
find-
for you
The
guys.
GPs are about 90%.
Exactly.
Go there.
Okay.
All right.
I think it's enough for this group. Thanks for.
All right.